Hello. So Lisa gets an A+ for Yagecic. If Tom couldn't say Cicchini, she got Yagecic. Peter Y, I hear that all the time. And I'm going to talk to you today a little bit about technology versus art and the tension between tech and art. I don't really think there is a tension between tech and art, but we hear it all the time at the agency. I've worked in technology for 20 years, and I actually went to school for theater. So for me, it's always been a natural mix between technology and art, and that's the reason that Situation exists. We love thriving on that tension that we feel sometimes. But I understand why people feel like there might be a tension between the two. When I went to Google's homepage recently, they have this great page on their website that says the 10 things that we know to be true. It's a what we believe kind of a credo mission statement. And one of the things that caught my eye is this statement: fast is better than slow. How many people agree with that statement? That doesn't surprise me. But it makes sense for a technology company. As a technologist, I actually think that this makes a whole lot of sense. If you're going to try to build technology, you want to move quickly. If you're going to fail at something, you want to fail quickly and move on to the next thing. So I actually do believe in this to some extent. But I know as artists, we sometimes might clench up a little bit when we hear that statement. Take a look at this beautiful piece of art. The inspiration for Sunday in the Park with George that our friends at the Hudson Theater are opening 1 week from tonight. If you don't have a ticket, get a ticket. It's a great show. But this is not fast. This painting consisted of over 500,000 individual dots of paint to create this masterpiece. And actually that show talks about the fact that art isn't easy, that bit by bit, art takes time. So in other words, you can't rush art. This is from Toy Story 2, but it said it really well. So I can see why people think there might be tension between art and technology. They seem at loggerheads. But then Jason set me up really nicely before for this piece. This is also on Google's website, on the things they believe. Focus on the user and all else will follow. And I kind of had an aha moment with that, because I think that's something that everybody in this room can probably appreciate and understand. We may not call them users, we might call them patrons, we might call them ticket buyers, we might call them viewers, but I think we all recognize the value of focusing on what those people want who are coming to engage with us. If you look at the mission statement for the LA Opera, right there in the first clause, to serve the public by producing world-class opera. So to me, this really struck a chord and said, we can find common ground. We can find win-win-win moments for technology and arts and our users. And that's what I really want to do for the next couple of minutes. And I realize I'm the last thing standing between you guys and some drinks, so I'm going to go through this kind of quickly. In the words of Michael Scott from The Office, with win-win-win, we all win. So the next few examples are going to be examples of areas where I think technology and the arts and the user are really winning together. Let's start with spaces, our physical spaces. What technology wants in spaces, we're seeing this more and more. You've seen some of the technology in the home. Damien talked about it, are spaces that are flexible. What the arts wants are great spaces to be able to tell their stories. Here's an example of an incredibly flexible, tech-infused space. This is the Digital Dumbo Outpost in Brooklyn, and it's probably the most tech-infused space you'd ever find. It was put together by Microsoft and our friends at Volvox Labs. It's really a cool space. You can see there's projectors all along the ceiling, and it's a multi-use space. During the day, it could be used as a skate park, like you see, or it could be a meeting space, and the screen rolls up, and now you have a beautiful window. Or you could pull these screens out of the wall and roll them across the floor. They don't even need power. I don't know how they do that. But you have a viewing station. Or imagine something like this. It's an empty room, but oh, maybe it's a box office, or maybe that's your bar at intermission. All of a sudden, this is a performing arts center, a small one, but it has that opportunity to be a flexible space. And we found a win. Our friends at the Kern Theater in San Francisco kind of embraced this philosophy. They just reopened after being dark for about a year. They went through a major renovation. They put in new bathrooms. It's beautiful. If you're in San Francisco, you have to check it out. But they didn't want to stop telling stories while they were closed. So they created this series called Kern Under Construction. And what they did was kind of cool. They actually brought people onto the main stage and used it like a black box. They used it as a general admission space. They brought people down the alley through the beautiful stage door. And if you look behind that screen there, that's actually the house. But there's nobody in the house because they're renovating it. But they embraced that idea of having a flexible space. And we thought that was really cool, a win-win for everybody. Wi-Fi. Wi-Fi, I'm happy to say, is something that performing arts spaces have started to embrace more and more. And we think there's a good reason for it. I think there was some tension around it a few years ago, but we're seeing more celebrations of wins around it. So the tech industry thinks of Wi-Fi like a utility. Stealing from our friends at Social Sign-In, they say, people expect Wi-Fi. It's like hot water. It's like air conditioning. Every space you go to, people expect to have it. The arts are using Wi-Fi for data collection. So this is another example from Google. Google's Wi-Fi is fantastic. This is an initiative they're doing in train stations, but Google also has Wi-Fi in some coffee shops. If you go to a Starbucks up by Columbia, you'll see Google's Wi-Fi. I was in San Francisco and experienced it too. It's the best. It really, really works. And I personally think that Google's Wi-Fi should be in every performing arts center in the city. Maybe we can talk to them about that at the happy hour. But there's also a win for the people that are investing in bringing the Wi-Fi into their space. This is an example of a dashboard from our office, actually. When people connect to our Wi-Fi, if they do so through social media, we start to see some interest graph data around them, and we think that's fantastic. This is going to help close that gap that Damien talked about only knowing a certain percentage of the ticket buyers who are in your space. Now you can increase that number. We've got some Steph Curry fans in the office, it seems. Phones. Okay, there's been a lot of tension around phones in spaces. I think we've all kind of gotten to a point where we realize that everybody's got the phone. Jason talked about this fact. Tech companies see phones as ubiquitous. Everything they're doing has to work on mobile. It's optimized for mobile. Search is optimized on mobile. Phones are a part of our life. They're not going away. The arts historically has seen phones as a distraction, and we get that. I understand. There's a little knot in my stomach when I see pictures like this. If that's a performance and everybody's got their phone out, we don't really want that. We want them looking with their eyes. But I think there are some great opportunities here and some interesting things happening in this space. What if at your performing arts center there was a phone charger at every single seat? And in order to charge your phone, you had to put it into this little slot and it put it in airplane mode. Well, that's a win-win. Your user is getting something. You do want them to be advocates at intermission. You do want them to be using their phone after the show to be your ambassadors. But maybe during the show, you're giving them something and you're guaranteeing that it's not going to be a distraction. This is a really cool example. Our friends at the Schubert organization are working really hard to try to bring this into reality. They're working with a company called Gala Prompter. There's an app called Gala Pro. You can download it today. And what this does is it allows you to do captions or translations during live performance. There's some great things about how I think this uses your phone. Number one, it's a black screen with white text, so there's less glare. It's less disturbing. Number two, it only works if you put your phone into airplane mode. So they're solving a problem, and they're also embracing the fact that phones are in our space. We're not trying to tell you you can't have it, but we're trying to use it in a smart way. Okay, tickets. Damien talked about ticketing earlier and about kind of where the world of ticketing might be going. For tech companies, they want people to stay on their platforms. They want them to stay on their sites. The arts organizations just want to sell more tickets. So how can I do that? How can I be in front of more eyeballs? So we already mentioned it. Maybe within a few voice commands, you'll be able to buy a ticket from Alexa. But right now in the UK, you can buy event tickets on Amazon, on their British website. We're also seeing tickets sold on Facebook. General admission right now, but reserved seating is on its way. And here's an example of a good ticket bot, not a bad ticket bot. This is a good one. You can, in Facebook Messenger, buy a ticket to the TechCrunch Crunchy Awards within just a few screen interactions, and then that's my ticket. It's $150. That seems a little steep to me. And we have Apple TVs all throughout our office. And one day I was sitting on our couches, I brought up the Apple TV, and I just did a search phrase for tickets. I just wanted to see if anybody was selling tickets on Apple TV. StubHub's there. So, I think that we're embracing the ticketing companies that are opening up the transactional APIs that are going to let us explore a whole new world of ticketing. Okay, photo sharing. I don't have to tell you about photo sharing. There's a lot of competition in the tech world. Every tech company that has a photo sharing app wants more usage. They're all competing with one another. They're all doing live now as well. And the arts, we do this all the time with our social media team. We use photo sharing to become our ambassadors. This is a fairly common picture, right? This is adorable. I see this in my Twitter feed all the time. People are using lenses within Snapchat to, that's one of the ways the photo sharing apps are kind of one-upping each other, coming back with more creative lenses, more fun stuff for people to do. Well, we're working with a company right now that's trying to expand that. To take a group shot and actually apply a lens. Imagine that was a screen in your lobby, and after a show, you could have a group of 8 to 10 people standing in the photo, and you have a lens that applies to everyone. Everyone's used to seeing them. We know people are going to want to share that. And that's a mock-up that John did. It's adorable. I love that one. Last point, customer service. Customer service is big for tech, right? Everybody who's ever taken an Uber has seen this. After you get out of the car, you rate your driver rates you. Don't know if everybody knows that, but it's de rigueur in the world of technology. Customer service for the arts, I think, is an opportunity to have people come back to our spaces, encourage repeat visitors. Last fall, I was late to a performance at Carnegie Hall. It was actually Lisa's chorale group that was singing the Oratorio Society. I'm sorry, Lisa, I didn't mean to be late. And when I waited to be seated, I was standing in a stairwell next to a surly usher who was waiting to seat me. And I understand that, I get it. I was late, it was my bad. But imagine if instead of just standing in that stairwell, maybe somebody gave me some VR goggles, I put them on my face, and maybe I saw a closed circuit feed of what I was missing inside the venue. Or maybe I saw a message from one of the actors telling me what I was missing until I could get seated. So I hope some of these ideas have inspired you guys. This is the kind of stuff that keeps us going. These are the kinds of things that we celebrate, and a lot of people in this room are fighting hard to make these kind of things happen. And we're going to have their back while they do it and find more of those win-win-wins. So with that, I'll bring Damien back up on stage. Thank you very much.